Welcome to the critique from my online tutorials. This one was from April watercolour lesson 2, and we were tackling adding animals, more of a suggestion of animals to enhance the actual scene, the nature of the scene, which was a farmyard. So grab yourselves a cuppa and hope what the suggestions I make and advice does help out. And perhaps as a further help, I've just added a couple of links at the end of this critique that you might want to have a look at, that may help you work out some of those issues that are mentioned in the critique. So sit back, hope you enjoy, and see you soon. Okay, we're starting with Bob's painting here of the farm scene that was worked from a photo from Coldy Island, just off the coast near Tenby. And some good colours in here, Bob. Really do like the background there. Perspective seems to be okay. There's a slight downward line there, which is okay. There's no reason why the ground can't sort of go up to this point. So I think that's okay. That works okay. I like the invention of or the addition of these couple of sheep here, and that we've swapped our square boxes for round what look like hay bales, or perhaps just racks of hay. Yeah, that's imaginative. They look like Canada geese, our three birds over here on the left hand side. Tonal range is pretty good. We have darks, mid-tones, lights. It's a lovely colour combination. I like that. Yeah, just be a little bit careful with the dry brush work. It's I think sometimes we need to decide whether we want to be painting wet on dry or wet in wet. Sometimes the when we're painting wet on dry, which a lot of this foreground is, the paint's not strong enough and the brush is just not loaded perhaps correctly. So give the wet on dry some more thought. You know, there's some lovely wet in wet work in the trees in the background, but I think the wet on dry work, which is mostly in the foreground here, is a little bit weak. So perhaps up the strength of paint, Bob, on your foreground shapes. Very good. So okay, moving on to Ellie's. This is a different scale of things. Lovely colours. Love the cockerel on the square box shape here. Okay, perhaps be a little bit careful with the definition on the head of the bird. It may just be that you want to lose the beak, the bill, the duck's beak there a little bit, just so it doesn't look so sort of, you know, it's just so that it doesn't look quite so obvious that we're trying to tell people that it's a duck. It's just a white bird, basically. But the colours, the sky in the background, absolutely stunning. Beautiful, played off beautifully with the purple here. But this bird here, the cockerel, is fantastic. Good light too, really good light coming from the right hand side. It's a really good piece of work, Ellie. Yeah, like the telegraph post. Yeah, bright, happy painting, lovely. Okay, moving on here to Hillary G. It's very good. A lot of texture in this painting. Good light. Direction of our shadow might need to break about here. I'll just show you what I mean. When we get to a change, because this is a vertical wall here at one angle, and this vertical wall is a side wall at a different angle. So at this point here, that shadow line there will change direction slightly. It'll either, it's more likely to perhaps travel at a different, if that one's traveling down the wall something like this, then that one's going to travel at a slightly shallower angle. Yeah, probably a little bit of shadow under there. But this is good. This is very good. Just clean that up a second. Can't get rid of that one. Yeah, it's a good box. The geese, the ducks, could perhaps be softened off a little bit. A couple of edges down here I might like to sort of just soften a little bit more. You have softened it, so I can see that. You might just need to soften them off a little bit. In all fairness to all of us here, I think the geese were, the animals in the painting were a bit of just a sort of addition. It wasn't like we were trying to produce a animal portrait. So yeah, I mean, that's a better than reasonable job. That's pretty good. Be careful a little bit with perspective, maybe. Think that line there goes down, whereas it should go sort of up slightly, like that line there, and that one there would correspond to that a little bit. So, but overall, yeah, it's very good. It's very good. You could warm up perhaps a little bit of the roof. That might have been quite nice, just to have warmed up, just to have a little bit more warmth. Sort of areas like here, maybe in a drift of a warm wash that might have gone slightly into the roof and into the wall there, or even over this roof, just a little bit of warmth there. But it's a very good painting. It's a very good painting. Okay. And we have next John H, as we have two Johns, and I want, respecting people's privacy, not want to give people's full names. Delightful. The colours are beautiful again. There's a reflection from somewhere, as though there's a pane of glass on this, in front of this painting. So I'm guessing that some of these subtle tonal shades, these that I can see, are probably a result of a reflection in the glass. But so taking that aside, I think there's some great transitions of colour here. It's weakened off beautifully back here, which pushes this area of woodland further away, of course. Yeah, be a little bit careful with outlining certain shapes like our bird. Just might want to lose. It can be very useful actually to outline objects, even though we know in real life there is no such sort of line around shapes in the real world, but it can come in useful as it's requirement sometimes in our artwork to show things off this way, but just be a little bit careful, John, that there's not too much line around this little bird here, and a little bit more warmth. And I think I was saying much the same as I was a moment ago about Hillary's. Some areas of the buildings probably need a little bit of warmth over here. You know, this lovely sort of box, we didn't know what it was when we were looking at the photo, but we assumed that it was some sort of storage box or maybe even animal feeder type receptacle. But see how lovely, and there's a lot of sort of burnt sienna colour in this. If there was a weaker, much weaker version of that on the wall somewhere over here, I think that would tie in nicely, because the painting sort of cuts off slightly. If I show you what I mean here, let's just grab that. The painting sort of cuts off a little bit. It's just about this point here, where everything to the right has got a good balance of cools and warms, but everything to the left here is a little too cool. And that's not a major, you know, that isn't a big issue at all. It's just a subtle case of balance. As I say, if you were to put a little bit of this warmth similar to this in and drift it out, you could pre-wet it with water, this entire shape here. If you pre-wetted an area of something like that, okay, but then delivered your weak wash of burnt sienna to about here, you'll find that it'll just drift out naturally into that area. And I mean, don't go too strong with the paint, and that would just sort of bring a bit of balance from left to right. It's a lovely looking painting though. I mean, it's a happy painting. Yeah, very good work, very good work. Okay, let's get who have we got? We've got Lindsey. Okay, great shapes, good perspective, good light. There may be an issue here for the need of some warmth. The warmest area we've got at the moment is just above tree line, just about there, that sort of yellow. And it's a yellow that I'm guessing that it was either raw sienna. There may be a bit of cadmium yellow in there or something like that. But if both with raw sienna and cadmium yellow, if you thin them out, they do go quite cold. They can go quite cold. So really, I'm just picking up on a little spot by the door there. That's the warmest spot in the painting. And I think that if, again, there are subtle areas. I mean, it's in balance. Effectively, it is in balance. But and forgive me if this is just sort of personal taste speaking, or take that into account at least. This may be personal taste speaking. But again, a little bit of warmth just to juxtapose the overall cold colours, you know, because blues, purples, dark blues here. The warm areas have been cooled down further, so which is understandable because we put washes over a lot of areas. So I think something might be worth bearing in mind here, Lindsey, is if you decide that you do want to show off a little bit of a warm area, take in account, perhaps if you can, when you're applying those warm colours, if they're going to sit where shadows are going to go on later, then you're going to lose those warm colours. So all the good intention of adding a bit of warmth in the early stages were negated a little bit by the fact that you've gone over them with a shadow, and that shadow is a cool colour. So with this, if it was mine, I would probably warm up perhaps a section through the mid-ground here, you know, really weak burnt sienna, put a wash through here. It doesn't matter if it went into some of these geese or ducks, the birds. Wouldn't matter if that warmth went into them a little bit too. So just run it through there. You might need to sort of run some down that roof a little bit of the same strength, same color, to suggest that, you know, the light is obviously coming from upper right to left in a diagonal like this, because we can see from the shapes on the roof here. So the light is coming from that direction, obviously. So that would mean a little bit of warmth on this roof area, and a bit more warmth around here, particularly to the left down here. And that's going to lift that painting. But you know, brushwork is extremely advanced. It's sophisticated looking. It's really good. Nice use of wet in wet, turning to dry brush as and where you needed it. Yes, a lot of skill there. The tree. One last thing here. Let me just grab a pencil. Let's choose a yellow color a second. This doesn't look like a tree, a bush to me. It looks more like a dark shadow. So I think what you've got to do is, and the fact that it stops at the door line there also means it's a shadow and not a real solid, tangible object. I think we need to warm it up a lot more. Have it run in front of the doorway a little bit. That would tell us. Obviously, we would need to put it around the bird here, and it would need to be closer to the back of this object here, the square object here. And if this was warmed up and given a little bit more texture to look more like a shrub, then it'll be more fitting. It will read better. Yeah. Okay, it's good. It's good. Just clear that up before I go. Okay, moving on now to Liz. This is Liz's painting. Again, a very well. There's a lot of skill again in the brushwork in this painting. Okay, good playoff between darks, lights, back into darks, warms, cools. There's good balance here. So if we look at the things that we're always aiming to tick, the little tick boxes that we need to sort of make sure we do. Cool against warm, yes. Light against dark, yes. Mid-tones there too. Texture, yes. Now, is there a little too much texture on some of the edges? And I know, you know, I hold myself responsible for the amount of I do labour the point a lot in my lessons. I fully accept that. But my caveat is just oops, just go back a second. The caveat here is really just to be a little bit careful, not having too much texture too far away from us. This area here where we went out, let me just get back a minute to yeah, I think you got to be careful around here. It's funny, it's subtle. They're not. It's not a big issue by any means, but I wonder if there's just. I can't put my finger on it if I'm honest. Maybe if I just get rid of my marks a minute there. I think the line gauge, the gauge of the line, the weight of the line, is a little too regular. It's quite thin here. It's quite thin here. It's quite thin here. Maybe in areas such as these nearer edges at the roof here, they could be made a little bit more. You're gonna sometimes if you've got a dark wash going on to create this bush, this shrub-like shape here, sometimes you can take wet paint across into another area, maybe with the handle of the brush even. but I think you just need to bulk out, make these a little stronger in areas. Our bird here, again, we were playing them down a little bit, but you probably do need to just soften some of those edges, particularly this edge here. You are likely to get a hard edge over the back of the bird because, of course, it's light against dark, and the light is hitting that surface, really hard, but it won't be hitting the surface as hard from underneath. So it's the sides opposite to the light source that we should be considering for softening. This would be that'd be a lot softer, and just be, just shorten. I always think if we put the bills and beaks, these things are called the bills, whatever you want to call them, we overdo that. They are relatively small details when it comes to birds at this scale, so you've got to sort of almost not give them beaks. If everything else is rendered quite well, a little bit of softening down here, and you could put a little the smallest of washes somewhere in the head to suggest there's some shape, even an eye socket or something like that there. Then your viewer is going to fill the rest in. I always think that as loose style artists, a way to look at detail, to consider detail, if we were to liken it to, say, a very familiar popular song, can you imagine that there's this sort of instrumental solo somewhere in the song, and you could whistle it all day long because you know it so well. If you removed one or two of those notes, you'd still recognize it because it's so familiar. And that's how I think of detail sometimes. If you put a shape in and you get 90% of it right, i.e. a bird, a figure, a car, a tree, whatever, you can afford to omit certain things. Omit the certain things that make that can have the shape look a little bit contrived, for want of for perhaps want of a better word, but overdone, just unnecessary. So just bear that in mind, Liz. The light down here is fantastic. And as I say, it's when you look at this painting for the actual practical skills, it's extremely good. It's advanced, and something a little bit weak. You could rub your finger across that post there, a damp finger, and it would take a little bit of the pigment from here, from that dark shrub, across the post a little bit. Of course, the light would be hitting the left-hand side of that post, so you could sort of rub a damp finger down one side of the post, dragging a little bit of that pigment in there, giving that post a little bit of form. It's a little bit flat looking, that's all. So it's just one or two areas, Liz. I would say a little bit flat looking, the bird and the post there. But overall, very, very good. Yeah. Okay, let's who have we got next here? Yeah, Linda, of course. Yeah, sorry, I jumped the queue just now, didn't I? Okay, very well painted, Linda. Getting your shapes, getting your brushwork. Your brushwork is coming along very, very nicely indeed. It's nice to see handling soft wash areas like we have in the sky here. Oops. Just handling these soft wash areas. Let me just show you. Here to there, there's two different textures. Into the building areas, three different textures, three different types of brush loading skills required, and you've nailed them, absolutely nailed them. It's very good. So probably what I would recommend for you to consider Linda, now in future paintings. Just be a little bit careful. We do have a sort of flatness to our birds. Okay, I'm just going to say the same thing as I've already mentioned in a couple of other paintings. You know, just think out, that could be made a little more duck or bird-like. At the moment, it's very round. We have a hard edge again on the wrong side of the shape, because that would be the shadowed side. So that would be a softened area there, as it would on any, you know, all the birds. Actually, this one here, I love this bird here, just about right. It suggests that it is in shadow, actually, and the edges are not as sharp, certainly not as sharp down here. So yeah, I think, you know, given the speed at which you've developed your brushwork skills, I think it's time for you now to focus on practicing shapes. Get to recognize the shapes that you're choosing to put in your paintings, whether they be animals, birds, figures, buildings, you know, houses, whatever. Just get drawing them out, roughing them out on scraps of paper, and just constantly practice them. You know, because you know how to apply paint. There may be a little bit of scratchy texture. Maybe we overdid that a little bit, but that would be easily. And I know why you've done it. You know why you did it this way, because it is meant to represent a sort of wooden fence type area. But be careful. Even that you can sometimes do too much. So, but it's very good, and I'd rather see that than it look absolutely flat with no texture, definitely all day long, you know. So yeah, I get that. So, but if you took a damp brush now and just softened over some of this area, just softened it out a little bit, don't lose that wonderful shadow that you've got there. That's another thing you're doing incredibly well, is your shadow, is understanding shadows and how they fall. Yeah, if you just softened out a little bit of that texture, and I think you know, you're on a really good run of progress here. Nice work, Linda. Okay, we have Roger. Okay, Rog. I love the dog. Love the dog. Okay, these colours are fantastic. In fact, I don't mean this in a rude way at all. It's quite, there's a sort of element of naiveness about it. You know, just how one colour, there's almost a single green all the way through here, but it has been lifted with and shaped, you know, giving it a little bit of form. And same with the dark sort of turquoise colour here. It's one colour, but the other areas are quite nicely rendered where the colours have been, you know, subtly changed. The area of the roof here, I can see a bit of warm in there, a little bit of cool in there. The same with the foreground here. Some warm in there, there's some cool in there. I love the creativity. I love the sheepdog here. I'm not sure, is that a shadow there where my little cursor is? Because that might suggest. Okay, I've got you. Yep, your direction. Oh no, I was going to say the sunlight direction's coming from here. That's why that bird's got a shadow there. But then the shadow light's coming from there, I think, isn't it? Because of the shadows off the buildings. So just be a little bit careful there, Rog, with thinking out your light direction. Okay, there's a bit of contradiction there. It's a lovely looking painting, and I always sort of say to people, you know, we know the rules. We know that you shouldn't just use one colour for an area, but it depends on what you're trying to achieve, the effects you're trying to achieve in your work. if you want this sort of what we would refer to as pushed colour, by where, you know, we keep our colours as bright as possible and as perhaps as close and as saturated to the colour they are when they first come out of the tube, then, you know, if you do it this way and it looks good, why should anybody tell you different, that you should change your ways? So I'm going to leave that for your consideration, Roger. I got an idea that you liked what you got, what you got here, and stuck with it. So good for you. You know, yeah, stick by conviction, isn't it? If you do anything with conviction, it'll always look good. And I think that's very much the case with this. I'm not sure not sure exactly what's going on with perhaps our these baby chicken chicks, maybe. Not sure whether it matters. The whole scene is delightful. It's I do like the dog. That's great. Reminds me of my old dog when I was a child. I really like that, Rog. I think that's delightful. It's a cheerful. Puts a smile on my face. Well done, you, sir. It's good. Yeah. Okay. Let's on to Ron's. This is very sophisticated looking. Yes, good. Confident use of paint here. Confident brushwork, confident paint. Confident application of paint, I should say. Good light. I like this a lot. Good perspective. It's a very established, it looks like the work of a very established watercolorist. Great shapes in here. Almost, and I like this particular area. I like it when it's almost overworked. It's just at the point. I'm just looking at these trees back here, and it's pushed right to the edge of overwork, of just nearly overworked. And that's what I aim to do with my own work. Always push it just to the point where one more brushstroke would have spoilt it. I think that's perfect. That's you know, that really is spot on. Is there a little is there call for a little softening maybe? I don't know, because I think I left my edge on this particular, in the demonstration, I think I left my edge a little bit hard there, but I'm not sure that my background was quite as dark as yours. So you sometimes have to sort of, you know, just weigh it all up, your own painting on its own merit, if everything's in balance. But I am nitpicking a little bit there, Ron, for good reasons. There's very little that I can fault in this. It's busy, but not overly busy, not too busy. It's busy, but interesting. Very good. I like that, Ron. It's good work. Okay. We have Sarah. Again, a very good looking painting. Love what's going on down back here. That is a wonderful woodland back there. It's funny how we all I think probably give some areas of our paintings more attention than other people. You know, with me, maybe it might be what's going on in the courtyard. With somebody else, it might be what's going on in the building. With Sarah here, that is just delightful. This area of woodland at the back there. Great thought. There's a really good transition there, just there. Let me just change that color a second. The transition at the edge of this roof here, beautifully softened. And it's when, and this is how important this is. Let me just get rid of those marks a minute. Is that The way to lose an edge is not always just by not having a line. I mean, having a line down here wouldn't be good, a dark line. Imagine if this line here was on the edge, it wouldn't be good. Because it's further away from us, we lose it. Well, and there's several ways to do it, and this is using all of them. One, we do away with any heavy line down here. Two, we match the tonal value of what's in the background to the tonal value at the point of where this roof goes into the background. So there's a tonal exchange which is identical, very, very close. There's no great, if we look at, and this is quite, this is correct over here. Over here we want to show that edge off. We had this with Ron's a moment ago, and I said to Ron, maybe you need a softer edge here because your background is dark here, but because it's in balance, if this one is softened, the tonal exchange here is close. The tonal exchange here is not close at all. It's extremely opposite. So look how there's a great example of how to lose an edge. Yeah, it's just about the tonal exchange. It's not always about not putting a hard line down there. Putting a hard line down there would definitely be wrong. But just, more importantly, you get a tonal exchange. Or if you do end up with a line down of any sort, it's a very broken line that's not too dark. Moving on to the rest of the painting here, nice bit of atmosphere here, a bit of spatter that sort of conjures up ideas of flowers, maybe even stuff sort of, being picked up in a warm summer breeze. Yeah, and I can't really see much evidence of the geese or the ducks or animals, but then again, I wouldn't mark the painting down on that basis. It wasn't really, it was about just suggesting animals in our scenes. You probably need to be a little bit more careful if just to bring the animals out a bit. So, and again, that's just a case of, you obviously know your woodlands. It's something you're very comfortable with. You know how to convey a good woodland scene like this, an area of vegetation. So I would just sort of, if you intend to start including animals as a subject or a life form of any sort in your paintings, yeah, just pencil them out, draw them, sketch them a bit more. As always the case, of course, that you do those blindfold normally. You don't. It's just on the odd occasion they may not have turned out where you wanted them to. It was quite tricky, this, actually, because there's quite a bit of busyness in this area in the first place. If we were putting these ducks and geese on a flat bit of ground or with a single element in support, imagine it was just a post with a bit of grass. It'd be easy enough to put our animals around the scene in that type of thing. But we had so much going on here, and I knew when I did the demonstration, that it was only ever going to be a hint of animals as part of the subject matter. It's a very good painting, Sarah. Yeah, and going back onto this area, we don't know exactly what's going on there, but we know it looks like the message is there. It sort of says, well, it looks like a old steel box that they've probably chucked some machinery in, or is it a feeder for the animals? It all works. Maybe this is slightly, if the wall is coming in this direction, and I am when I see a good painting, I'm always struggling to sort of find something wrong, but in a constructive way, I hasten to add. But if the wall is coming in this direction, this scale of this building here might have needed to be a tad bigger, just perhaps something like that, to tell us that this was a continuation of this direction coming, because this is slightly coming towards us on the left hand side there. But what a lovely painting. It's great. Yeah, good work, Sarah. Okay, And we have, last but not least, Viv. It's a jolly looking painting again. It's a jolly looking painting. Yeah, very bright, very colourful, very summery. Good shapes. The only thing that is catching my eye a little is the birds again. I think if it wasn't for this one here, the scale would be fine, absolutely fine. But that one, we take it as being further back, a bit further back from these other, certainly from this one here. It's as big as this one, and it's which makes it look a little bit too big for the placement there. So just be a little bit careful with your scale. And again, I would like to see some softer edges just on that lower left side. Just in here, just soften that edge off there a bit. You know, that dark shadow under the bird there, you could drag with a damp finger, you could drag some of that shadow around in a sort of semicircular fashion without leaving too much of a hard edge. You've got to try, be very careful. This area of the subject matter is a rounded area, the breast of the bird, so it's not going to have a hard edge, but you do need just a sort of colour, bring a little bit of form, shading into this lower edge and losing that hard edge there. Not so much a case with the bird at the back because it's light against light, so there is no edge. But it's whenever we're using, we know this is the direction of light hitting the bird on the back up here, so that yes, definitely a hard edge there, hard exchange, dark to light. But down here, no, that would be a much softer transition on that edge there. Yeah, just the strength in the colour, Viv, in your hens, it's identical. So you probably just say, why don't we take a white patch out of this bird here? Certainly make these two a little bit lighter because they are further back there. This one's right over there in the corner, but it's got the same tonal temperature, temperature and tonal value as the much nearer hen here. Let's start thinking about creating depth. And if you are joining this next tomorrow's lesson, I'm not sure whether you're on for tomorrow's lesson. We're dealing with that very subject of creating depth and making sure that we create distance. So, but this is good, Viv. It's a lovely area over here. I do like the shrubby area, and I do like your woodland behind. It's good, and so it's just no big issues here at all. Think about, you know, just creating a little bit more form in white shapes. And I think what it is, I'm telling myself this all the time. When when everything else is bright in colour, these are quite bright colours, then white paper, leaving any area pure white paper, doesn't work quite as well as it does in paintings where the colours are slightly muted. Let's call them slightly more greyed down a little bit. So it doesn't take much to grey down a blue. It doesn't take much to grey down a bright yellowy green. It just needs its opposite number. You know, in the blue sky, you'd probably allow, and you have done it, I can see, you'd allow for some of this raw sienna area, or if it was burnt sienna, to drift a little bit more into the sky maybe. But the point I'm making, sorry, is this: when you're using quite strong saturated color, you know what I mean by saturated, it's as though the paint's it's a bright color in the first place and it's come straight out of the tube without much interference from another color or water. Then when you've got those bright colors, white doesn't look quite as natural as it could in a painting where the colors are knocked back a little bit. So just bear that in mind. But love the elements. That's that box there. Really screen, almost as though it's got some writing on it too. I like that. Yeah, the light is great. It's in balance. It's all in balance. Apart from, like I say, you just need something in those geese. And be careful of this one here. It's a little bit too big. Not, you know. So yeah, just think about scale and position. Well done, everybody. Well done, Viv. Good work. So here ends this critique, and I hope it's useful to you, and I hope you get some benefit from it, and that you consider some of the things that I've said. And I always sort of say that, you know, they just consider the points I'm making, and see if it brings some improvement for you. You know, don't be afraid to leave your comments, send me an email, and I look forward to seeing our next work.